This is EdTech People, a podcast where we get to meet those working in EdTech, exploring their journeys, roles and insights. You can catch up on our previous episodes at any time by searching for us wherever you get your podcasts or visiting our website at www.edtechpeople.co.uk. We're always on the lookout for guests, so if you're interested in coming on the podcast, please follow the link on our website and let us know. Hello and welcome to another episode of EdTech People. Today I am joined by Shayne Grove, who is the CSO with Schools Broadband. Shayne, great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. So, Shayne, you and I have known each other now for probably a bit too long. I remember back when I was network manager of St. Bede's, I think is when we first met, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. No, I remember that, driving up, and I was supporting one of the other guys, wasn't I? And then he turned up late, which was typical for him anyway.
Yeah.
We were already mid-flow in what we needed to talk about, so yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think I then said, well, I want you to be my account manager with Novatech, who were suppliers, and we brought quite a few things through you. So I think this would be a really interesting chat because I think we've gone through quite a bit of different parts working together, and your role certainly developed, and in a way mine has as well. So these days you're CSO at Schools Broadband. So just talk us through a little bit what that means.
Oh God! All right, okay. So yeah, CSO, Chief Sales Officer at Schools Broadband. So as I'm sure most of your people know, Schools Broadband is part of TalkStraight, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, EdTech ISP in the country now. So I look after the sales team, the bid function, our technical account managers, etc., and anything to do with sales, really, I look after, and obviously relationships with the customers and things like that, and dealing with the larger things. Work very closely with the CSO, Dave, and our CTO, Matt Hattersley, as well.
Excellent. Cool. And so you're fairly new to that role, aren't you, now? How long have you been there now?
I joined TalkStraight on 9th of January, originally as...
so coming up to a year then?
Yeah, coming up to a year, pretty much. I joined originally as sales manager, and then the CSO, who was obviously my line manager, decided to leave the business, which personal reasons and some other bits. And then Dave kindly asked me if I wanted to step up, and I said, yeah, let's go for it. Let's see how we go. So yeah, this is where I'm now. So
yeah, great. So as I said, so we first knew each other back in the days of when you was being a reseller. Is that the right term? Was it a reseller?
Yeah, reseller, VAR, value-added reseller. So yeah, basically reseller. Yeah.
And then you moved on to selling broadband, and moving on that. And as I tell everybody, I think one of your very first customers with the broadband sales, and it's ironic really is that the two people who came to sell me broadband, one was yourself and one was Brad. Brad is the director of Consero, who I now work for. And then we worked quite closely with Lord's IT and providing broadband across to them, some 20-30 schools.
They were fun times.
It was fun times, yeah, for sure. So have you always worked with education? You know, when you was been the VAR and the value added reseller and stuff, has it always been education?
It has, pretty much. So I just sort of slid into dealing with that vertical quite well. I'd like to think I understand schools, obviously the buying cycles and the personalities and people you get to deal with. Obviously, it's changed a lot over the years, which everything does anyway. I don't, dealing with normal network managers and things like you sort of were at the time are things of the past now. But yeah, always dealt with education. I enjoy making sure, I don't know, value for money, and nowadays that the kids and the students and the staff and whatever are safe and well protected. Yeah, so that sort of gets me up in the morning to some degree.
Yeah, that and a big coffee, no doubt.
Lots of big coffees.
So the work that you've done has kind of aligned and gone alongside with the development of multi-academy
Yeah,
trusts. When you were first starting, there wasn't too many of those around.
no,
And obviously there's quite a big growth in them, and through Novatech, CoConnect, and through to Talk Straight, you've been dealing with them in one way or another, and still
yeah.
the standalone schools. So you've been part of that change, and I guess quite a blunt question is, in your experience, is the sector in a better place now with the multi-academy regime than perhaps it has been before?
Oh God, that's a difficult one and probably a very loaded question. Depending on which side of the fence you sit, really, isn't it? I think I think multi academy trusts are a good thing. If I'm honest, it gives a lot more. Obviously, it gives that autonomy to the trust and the board and the trustees. Whereas the LEAs just were too rigid with a lot of things,
Mm.
and it was very much locked in. I mean, I'm not going to say everything's perfect with the mats because it certainly isn't. Obviously, there is a lot more consolidation happening now. You've got more super mats appearing and things, and the smaller mats are in a way getting gobbled up. One way to put it. Also, you get bureaucracy no matter where you work and stuff anyway. But with the mats being far more able to sort of see a vision that they want to go on is very good, whereas it being led by whatever ilk political party you feel in that particular region, because they do have a slight element to that anyway. And I think it's in a relatively good place. I mean, budgets are always tight; they're always getting squeezed and everything else. But that's the same even in private sector now at the moment, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think some of the places where we're starting to see some benefits, and I think they're generally good things. As you say, you can always have bad examples of a good thing. Is innovation, and
Yeah,
particularly around the direction which they go in terms of IT and the deployment. So
yeah,
I know what you helped me move away from, and what we moved together away from, was kind of systems that were designed and fed into schools by the county council, broadband systems, and um, even to the point of telling you how to set up your Active Directory and usernames and such like that, through to now, um, where we're seeing innovation in schools in terms of their connectivity. And I think a good example of that is when we look to move the trust that I was part of away from the county council broadband, and we were one of the first really to go into
yeah,
the MPLS
yeah.
way of doing things and connect things up and looking what we can centralize there. So yeah, I think the innovation would be one side of it. I don't know if you agree with that.
No, I do. I mean, you get some trusts, small, medium, large trusts, which there are certain people which will come along and they will innovate, and you will have that SLT who will embrace that vision and go along with it as well. You were one of them. You were one of the first, in my opinion, anyway, to say, actually, you know what, let's go for this. We can do X, Y, and Z, and look what we can achieve. And you did achieve some fantastic things with Lords, whether the trust, whoever agreed with you or not on it. And you're seeing it across the board in other trusts as well. I mean, you've got, let's look at Ben from Bath and Wells. He spearheaded the way in what he did on going to cloud for primary schools, and even during COVID, that was incredibly brave and innovative of what he did there. And you've got other trusts doing similar things, and also the way they're imparting that knowledge back onto the students as well. Some of them really do drive that forward.
Yeah,
100%.
and I think because not only, I mean, the connectivity side has obviously allowed a lot of the
Yeah,
next phase.
yeah,
You can't move to cloud without consistent, reliable, secure, safe connectivity. And I always think it's interesting now when we're talking with schools and even looking at the DFE standards. They're talking about a minimum speed for primaries, which is 100 meg and 30 meg. I
Yeah.
mean, the if 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer ago, you started talking about primary schools having gig lines, like they would have laughed you out of the
Oh,
place and think they couldn't afford it. But now it's the standard
yeah.
to have in a primary school.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the DFE standards now, I think, are potentially even behind what they need to be. You've got
Mm,
a primary school which has gone full cloud. I'm sorry, 100 down and 30 up, especially the upload. That's not enough.
yeah.
All the kids and staff streaming things down and pushing data back up because they're all on OneDrive or Google Drive. You need far more than 30 meg upload. Let's face it.
Yeah, definitely. And the secondary recommendation is up to a gig, so that's obviously a leased line.
Yeah,
And luckily, we're seeing a bit more FTTP in the world now,
yeah,
so lots of primaries can do it. But even the FTTP, whilst can be significantly faster, of the lease line is obviously the gold standard of getting it in there to school. But we're
yeah,
seeing that up. A lot faster speeds these days, aren't we? I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Dave that I was your boss,
yeah.
that I was sat at an Edgy Geek event listening to him talk about the rise of
Oh, yeah,
altnets
the rise of
and
altnets. I did a similar thing when I was there this year, actually.
yeah,
Yeah, the altnets coming in and really kicking it out of Virgin and OpenReach and everything like that. I mean, we work hugely with altnets now at TalkStraight or Schools Broadband, whatever you want to call us. And we're seeing huge speeds. Peterborough. We've got dark fibre in Peterborough now. We've got primary schools on 5 gig as a standard. And with altnets around the country, we're doing 2 gig as a relative. It's just sort of happening. The secondary schools are going for 10 gig bearers where they can, and we've even got a couple of carriers now where if you put a 1 gig line in, they're just going to put it as a 10 gig bearer automatically, and
right.
it's an easy upgrade path because the bandwidth use is just getting more and more every day. But the other side to it, the connectivity, is obviously the security.
Hmm.
Schools do struggle with their security, whether they want to admit it or not, whether it's internal or even external threats. So, I mean, TalkStraight's DDoS platform, I think we're stopping in excess of 1 petabyte worth of volumetric attacks each year now.
Hmm.
And we're seeing it day in, day out on the schools. They're just getting completely, well, they don't realise it because of the way we do it, but they're getting hammered externally. So just, you know, that growth is just exponential now. The bigger the connection, the more you're going to see that.
Absolutely. So, for those listening or watching who don't necessarily understand how the connectivity market works, particularly around the schools, because it's not the same as getting Sky to put a line into your home, and it's true. Most people will have a faster line, or at least the figures in their home, perhaps, than their kids do at schools in quite a few places, certainly at primary level. So there are, or there were, only BT Openreach, Virgin, TalkTalk as kind of like the main carriers that have got infrastructure around. Most of it is managed, regardless if you're doing it by BT Openreach. And then altnets are people who have now come in and putting their own fibre around. Is that right? Is
Yeah,
that
that's
a
right. So you've got City Fibre. Everyone's known of City Fibre. Net Omnia are another one now. I think they're the second or third largest altnet in the country off the top of my head. And you've got loads of others which are just dotted around. I mean, but that market's now going through consolidation as well. So
yeah,
you've got a lot of the smaller altnets are now getting eaten by the bigger ones, like Brisk, which was Bradford off the top of my head. That's now Net Omnia. They've gone and bought that. And you've got City Fibre, which are doing the same. So that consolidation in the market is happening like it is with Mats. It's now happening in the altnets.
yeah. So what has been quite a closed solution is now being opened up a bit more, and
Yeah.
although there's still a long way to go
Oh, God.
for
Yeah.
across the country for sure. And whereas schools used to have ADSL like homes did, now they're on lease line, which is the DFE saying fibre only into the schools. And the only, correct me if I'm wrong, the only two fibre products out there are FTTP, fibre to the premise, and the lease line solution. Is that right?
No, there's EOFTTP as well now.
Okay.
You remember the days of EOFTTC and things like
Yes.
that? You've now got EOFTTP, which in effect is a lease line. You
Right.
can, if you add like an additional SLA or something along those lines, it is effectively a lease line. There's a few other funky bits on a lease line, you know, that one-to-one contention and stuff like that. EOFTTP hasn't necessarily always got that. Again, depending on the carrier or the infrastructure provider. But yeah, you've got EOFTTP now.
All right. So there we go. I've learned something new as well. Then an extra type of broadband in there. And as you rightly say, the security is an important element. So what you stick at the end of a line, whichever end you stick it,
Yeah,
in terms of doing that. So providers such as TalkStraight will put their boxes, bigger boxes, necessarily at the end of the connection in usual to mitigate some of the impact and benefit from scale
yeah,
there and expertise as well, because the people who are monitoring and managing those connections are obviously able to sit in one place and do that work. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about firewalls to protect them, we're talking about filtering to protect students and to keeping children safe in education. The same you're talking about in terms of that malware blocking, that, you know, that those attacks that are coming through there as well. Or you've got the alternative, which is having lines from providers and popping the box in the
yeah,
school level at the end of the line and being able to do that. And you know, it's been an interesting pathway for that whole filtering and firewall point of view as well, because it's gone from managed services at county level
yeah,
to going to on-site solutions, now going back to hosted solutions at a provider, and now some schools are now going back to having more and more. Some have never changed, and having there, and you've got the big names in the market, which is your NetSweepers, your FortiGate now look to be doing quite a bit of stuff as well. You've got Smoothwall, and throw me another name here. You've got Lightspeed
yeah.
on there as well. And so you've got some of these quite big ones that are targeting the UK
Oh,
market and
yeah,
obviously across the world. But they have to deal with a different kind of place now, don't they? Because used to be static computers in school. Now there's devices going home, and the need is to make sure that those devices going home and off-site have the same level as in school. So it's quite a tough area, isn't it, to get right? And to the you know, kids are always trying to get around it. Even staff in many cases are trying to
yeah,
get around it.
yeah.
And there's actually a requirement with the technology standards, you know, that your filtering isn't restrictive, it's protective but not restrictive, and that's quite a fine balance, isn't it, between the two? How do you find that at scale?
Quite challenging. I mean, we've got the ability to obviously be very granular with our customers and move things around, etc. But we've got to make sure those base levels are covered. Obviously, you don't want a student stumbling across something they shouldn't. But it's really challenging, because you'll have one school that will turn around and say, yeah, we're going to allow Amazon, we're going to allow X, Y, and Z, etc. And then you've got other schools who say, no, we're not allowing any of that. It's really difficult to find that right balance. We're looking at potential options at the moment for sort of like a click and go sort of wizard use. We predefine what we're going to give you, and you can sort of click through. But again, that's proving very challenging on how we may look to potentially implement that.
Mm. It's
Uh,
also a lot about accountability, isn't it? Because
yeah,
it's like the typical problem with safeguarding on IT systems. Always traditionally, it's been an IT system, so people have incorrectly left it to the IT team to do it, and we're not the experts in safeguarding. You know,
no,
we're whilst I've done the DSL training, I've been a DSL. That's a rarity, and so you know, you don't know what you don't know with it. You don't know the trends and the patterns and the reasons, and
Sure.
um, it's not always the people making those decisions these days are the right people. It's still a big problem, isn't it? Because you
Sure.
talk about that ability for them to select, yes, I want this and want that, but are they looking at it from the safeguarding point of view? You quite often have teachers saying, well, yeah, I've got no problems with the teachers going on social media,
Mm.
but they're not potentially understanding all of the risks of that, and potential benefits, of course.
Yeah. Well, there's pros and cons, or risks and benefits to everything, isn't there? At the end of the day, but one thing we have with the scale that TalkStraight operates at is we can see a lot of these trends and a lot of things which are going on very quickly. In general, we operate our system in a very different way to others who host NetSweeper. We run a huge data lake where everything gets pulled into that, and then we can slice and dice and analyze the data down to the nth degree. Um, it's one of the ways that we've been able to do the SIMP platform to make sure reporting's easier for DSLs, etc. But at that scale, with that volume of data we can see, like I've just said, and I'm repeating myself, I know it. We can really dive down into that, and we can give some true advice to people when they need
Mm.
it or ask for it. But it also comes down to Kixie obviously changed a while ago, didn't it? Where the DSLs were far more responsible than network managers. I don't disagree with that. As a network manager, you're there to make sure the systems are working. You're not
Yeah.
necessarily there to make sure that little Johnny down in class 5 or whatever is looking at inappropriate material. You just want to make sure the system's going. But we're still seeing it now. A lot of DSLs keep pushing it back to the network managers, and
Mm.
they shouldn't be doing that.
The simple thing I always throw back to people when they're saying that, and I've had it recently in a couple of schools where somebody left, and all of a sudden they're questioning why all the captures are going to them and all the smooth all logs are going to them, and they said, well, this used to be an IT problem. And I was like, I don't know what female genitalia mutilation would look like. I don't understand that
Right.
in enough detail. I've done the training. I can know what it is, but would I be able to tell if somebody was putting that? Would I know the full context link, not just of that, but how that might link into other bits,
Yeah.
prevent and other areas
Yeah.
of stuff? No,
Mm.
because that's not my job. Just the same as a DSL wouldn't understand how the filtering works with allowing other systems through it, and the technical side of this. They're two very different jobs, and just because
Yeah.
it's on a computer does not mean that it's an IT technician or a network manager or whoever's job to deal with it. It's somebody. It's the same with like finance. Yeah, of course you run Sage on your machine. Doesn't mean that the IT person can go and run the budgets.
It's also that other element as well, isn't it? As a DSL, you're going to know if a particular student or group of students is at risk
Yeah,
or under observation for something. As a network manager, you're not going to know that, and you
no,
shouldn't be privy to that information either.
yeah.
The DSL should be the one who will be the one who knows that, and by looking at these reports, we'll be able to gain a bigger picture of what that student's.
Because it's only part of the thing, because not everything happens on devices.
No, it doesn't. Not
A
at all.
lot does, but we all know that the challenges for schools in terms of mobile devices, mobile data, coming in, and things like BYOD,
Yeah,
these are really risky situations and dangerous for schools, not just on the safeguarding side, but like you mentioned earlier on, the security side. And
yeah,
we see the headlines, and you look at Marks and Spencers, you look at Jaguar Land Rover, you look at all these other hugely impacted stuff, but actually you don't hear day to day how many schools are. But working in the industry, we both know that it's a daily occurrence for schools to have
oh,
cyber security incidents,
yeah,
and the impact of them is huge. And I guess the internet line is the road in for the majority of
yeah.
cases. So how
Road
do
in
you
or
kind
road
of
out,
like,
depending what's happening.
yes? So that's got to be a huge place now where companies like TalkStraight and others are having to focus a lot of resources on that protection, and
Yeah.
I guess that early warning when and detection of it, as well as prevention.
Yeah, I mean, on a Talk Straight perspective, security is first and foremost, along with safeguarding, obviously, because we look after schools, so of course safeguarding is important. But that security is really vital. We're prepping at the moment to overhaul, well, not overhaul. We're trying to think the right way to put it. We're just looking
Enhance.
at enhance and actually invest further. We're about to invest circa £500,000 into our Fortigate estate, which is now the largest outside of North America. But we're about to bolster it even further with new hardware to make sure it can handle not only the increased bandwidth which is going through because of these new big lines, but it's also that security landscape and the threats which are out there continuously. Obviously, I mentioned our DDoS mitigation earlier. We've increased the capacity on that as well a number of times to make sure that it's ready. And part of our internal sort of thoughts as well is we don't want to run hot, as we call it. So we want to make sure there's always, I think, 30 to 40% overhead on everything that we do. So, and those security threats, they take a lot of pressure. They not take a lot of pressure. They put a lot of pressure on the system. So that extra investment is just making sure that we're doing it right.
Yeah, and on people, of course, as well. Those people that are having to manage it and try and go to sleep at night knowing that they're responsible for it. And being one of those people,
Yeah.
I know how that feels.
I do know how that feels. I still remember that text or that call at like 2 a.m. once upon a time many years ago.
Yeah, I remember that as well. And the positive thing, it was answered. But there being I was testing stuff and was able to access some stuff that I shouldn't have, and it's your worst nightmare. I remember one of my old technicians, Dan, who you probably remember. He used to. We always use 888.com as our trial for filtering.
Yeah.
It's a gambling website. Don't suggest anybody listening goes to it. I'm not promoting it in any shape, way, or form, but it's better having a gambling website come up than something else in a schools, particularly if you're testing something remotely. And so I remember somebody pulling me aside one time and asking if Dan had a gambling problem because he kept on accessing the 888 website and it'd come up in all the alerts. I'm like, no, that's genuinely one of the sites that we use to test it. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, and we'll jump back in shortly, but I want to introduce the sponsors who make EdTech People possible. All are recognisable brands to anyone working in EdTech. Smoothall need no introduction to those working in schools, with 1 in 3 in the UK using their internet filtering, which provides real-time filtering wherever a user is and on any device. They also provide Smoothall Monitor, which is an essential safeguarding solution which allows monitoring of devices and captures for schools. You can find out more about Smoothall Filter and Smoothall Monitor and the other advice and support they've got available at smoothall.com. Next up, Secure Schools are an education-only cybersecurity team working to help schools understand the security within their schools and, crucially, provide support and training for those working within the school or trust. Recently, they have released their free Cyber School tool, allowing schools to assess their cybersecurity easily by answering key questions and getting a dashboard with all their results. Find out more by visiting their website at secureschools.com. First Pillar provide extensive support to schools in a wide range of areas. Their founder, Emma Gray, is an experienced school business leader who now works to support schools in all their operational needs, leaving them to focus on educating. You can see all the services that Emma offers at First Pillar and some great blog posts by visiting her website at firstpillar.co.uk.
Hello listeners of EdTech People, I'm Craig. When I worked in a school, I noticed how challenging it was for teachers to find and reserve shared spaces. That's why I created Classroom Bookings, an easy-to-use online room booking system. With Classroom Bookings, staff can reserve rooms at any time from anywhere. Designed for schools of all sizes, it supports multi-week timetables and flexible period times. Plus, the cloud service is priced at just £149 per year with no limit on the number of rooms or users. Try it free today or find out more at classroombookings.com.
But so we've talked about, the huge amount of bandwidth and the safeguarding and of course the security, and all that's on the same kind of road that we're seeing a load more different type of technology in the schools that needs to be connected to that connectivity and
Yeah.
needs to be protected and is being used. So we saw the rise of tablets, we've seen the rise of one-to-one devices, we're seeing BYOD, which could be literally anything brought into there that needs to be connected with a million different connectivities. And I know your feelings on it match mine, that I hate BYOD. It's a stupid idea. It shouldn't happen.
I think it's Matt, our CTO. I think he sits on like a DFE advisory board, and I could be completely and absolutely wrong here, so don't take it as gospel. But I think the DFE are potentially going to be prepping to say BYOD should not be allowed anymore. I have a feeling. I could be wrong.
They wouldn't be wrong, and I think it's useful to say why I think that, because people listening might be like, "Oh crap, my school's got BYOD. Why is that?" There's three main reasons, I think. One, you can't properly safeguard people on their own devices because you can't install any of the software on their devices.
No.
And even if you could, they can take it off because it's their device. And so they're not going to keep that on there, no matter what you say. The second is culpability, responsibility for devices. If a technician goes and tries to fix somebody's device and they break it, whose responsibility is that? Can your school be affording to replace multiple MacBook Pros because that's what they've got to try and show off? And also in terms of the what happens if another kid goes and breaks them all? And of course, you've got the equity and equality arguments. You've got people who can afford a lot more devices than others in terms of multiples, but also the type and specification of it. And then, lastly, you've got zero cohesion for teaching and learning. So those devices, taken to a classroom, what a teacher needs at the head of a classroom is to know what their students can do from technology in order to harness that and utilize that. So if they can't do that and they're not secure, then why are we letting them into school? And phones I get because they're a safety thing, and we've seen the pouches and everything like that, but they're not connected to a school network. That's actually more of a pastoral, more of a behavior issue than a technology issue, the issue of phones. But if you're letting them bring in their devices into the school, you are inviting both security, safeguarding risks, as well as the pastoral risks and everything like that. And for what benefit?
Well, my personal opinion, and I know people will shoot me for it, I don't see the benefit. I'm quite security conscious. You know that. You've known me for a number of years now. I think it's just an absolute security nightmare. A private company wouldn't allow it for security. Why on earth should a school?
Absolutely.
Something bad gets in your network, like we've seen in the news and a number of other trusts, and probably stuff which has been swept under the rug and not even mentioned. You've got your MIS, you've got your phone systems, you've got other personal data, everything like that. It's too big a risk. In my personal opinion, at MIS, you're holding everything under the sun about that student, even beyond the scope of the student now, especially if they're under special care and things like that. Okay, it's cloud hosted, etc. But all it takes is that admin machine to be infected or compromised. That data's out there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And the thing is, as well, is that when we talk about benefits, BYOD generally doesn't go into the classroom. Where BYOD is probably sixth formers that are doing it for private study. Okay, well, that's one argument for it. But then they're going into the classroom, and are they being able to use that technology for their learning? Or are they just using it outside the classroom? And why should they be providing that equipment to do that? It's a funded education system. It's free at the point of delivery. So why are some kids getting a better opportunity because they or their parents or whatever can afford better devices or a device at all that others can't? It's inequitable. It's unfair. And I strongly believe that we've got an education system where we shouldn't encourage that.
Yeah, I mean, inequality and everything else has a whole different kettle of fish to talk about. We could probably be here for hours discussing that. But I mean, yeah, your personal device, if you're going to use it outside the classroom, fine. To some extent, I'm still conscious about security.
Yeah,
But as long as you're savvy enough on a network manager or an MSP point of view, that you're going to be relatively safe. I know I'm contradicting myself right now, but hey ho. But in a classroom, no, you should be using the devices which the school has provided you, or as a one-to-one scheme, whatever's going on there. You shouldn't be using a personal device, not at all.
absolutely. And it might shock you because I know you and I have worked for many years as a Microsoft ecosystems and
Yeah,
have shunned Google quite often.
yeah,
But these days, there's a place for everything, and Google are investing heavily in their IT for education at the moment. It comes in swings and roundabouts between Microsoft and Google. Both are heavily investing in AI and features, and Google in particular. Chromebooks are a really solid solution for affordable devices, regardless of if you're Microsoft or Google, because you can access both through them,
yeah. You can, yeah.
and really easy to use. There's no, those a Chromebook is what, £200 to £300, with a touchscreen and all day battery within that price. Show me something else that you can invest in school that's going to have that kind of purpose and bring that kind of security in terms of the filtering and the monitoring. And be able to impact not only in school but after school with additional work. You can't
No,
you
no,
can't
not
can't do that with anything else. But that's the answer, not BYOD. I think that's my view, and it sounds like
yeah.
we're quite aligned on that.
Yeah, we
So
are quite blind.
yes, definitely, it's almost like we've known each other a little while. So we're looking at the type of stuff in school, but it's not just limited to obviously the devices anymore. You're seeing things like CCTV. You're seeing VoIP more. Well,
Yeah.
far
Oh, VoIP
more.
is the thing now, isn't it? So
Yeah. With lines going from BT, the VoIP going in there. These things are quite difficult to route and to manage and ensure quality of service. VoIP in particular takes a lot, and then obviously the rise of video meetings. I don't think people realise how much data that uses. I was in a meeting earlier on this week and was in an office, and I foolishly connected my phone to it because I thought it was only going to be a quick call, and 3 hours later my phone's dead, and then I
yeah.
found out that I was using my SIM card and not the company SIM card, so I've got no data left. But they use intense amounts of data, don't
Oh
they?
yeah. Obviously, my previous role, I was in the office 3 days a week, 2 days at home. Now I'm pretty much at home, except when I go up to Leeds, or not Leeds, rather Yorkshire, or when I'm out and about at meetings. But I spend most of my working day on Teams now, for better or for worse. It depends on your point of view. But I love my Unify stuff. I've got Unify bits at home. I look at the traffic that goes through now on the odd occasion because I get a bit bored. Not during the working day, Dave, in case you listen, but I get a bit bored in the evening. I take a look, and my Teams traffic is insane. The amount of data I'm pushing through on Teams, and I can only think what that's like on large trusts and everything else, especially when they're doing all those other bits which go on. And remote learning is becoming a thing now. No, remote teaching is becoming a thing now as well. So I know a couple of trusts of ours which have got members of staff who are in the West Country, but the schools are in London and everything. It's like, hey, that's a thing now. Didn't know that.
Well, I think it's on the backdrop of a staff shortage. What can you do to get those quality teachers in front of the classrooms? And the answer is, technology can play a big part in that. And I think, it would be something that I think is going to be more and more, as the very nature of multi-academy trusts is consolidation, and to enable that, retention, recruitment and delivery of teaching and therefore the learning.
Yeah.
These support systems in place are critical and enabling that. If we go back to when we were talking about multi-academy trusts, without technology, they would be a lot more ineffective than what they are.
Yeah.
obviously that all tied through COVID, and is, I think, I'm pretty sure you sold me them, the several thousands of devices that we pushed out,
Yeah,
and been able to use that cloud-based technology, which, as you mentioned earlier on, you've now got the upload, because it's going up to your Microsoft or Google account rather than your server in your school,
yeah,
and that just sees a loads on it. In terms of AI as well, it'd be foolish not to consider the impact of that and the amount of traffic that's coming through and from that, and that's a major risk as well, isn't it?
yeah. I think Chat GPT, isn't it? They've got like an education friendly one now, or it's on its way,
Right.
where it will specifically not give certain responses, and it will pick up whether a student is trying to get answers for homework and things. So instead of giving the child the answer, it will coach the child
Mm,
instead to get to the answer. So I think that's quite good on an AI perspective, but
yeah.
also that risk of all the other models out there and the other
Well,
things.
that's the thing, isn't it? There's new things coming along every day. Even in the
Yeah,
Microsoft and Google. So Microsoft and Google's Gemini and Copilot are the two that are GDPR compliant in education, and they're not going to learn
yeah,
by default when you're logged in. And there's obviously guardrails in place for them, but all these other ones that are popping up, and different strains. And I think it's in the training that I do on AI and the AI introduction into school, and showing them what's available, what's capable, which changes, weekly. It's a case of explaining to them that not all AIs are the same.
yeah,
There's some there that you can use. Was it something like character.ai, where kids are talking to characters, and it got sexual and all kind of
yeah,
stuff. And what really brought it home is that my daughter was on there having conversations, and I saw what was in those conversations. I mean, Meg, and she was on there, and that was scary. And this is somebody who's got the control set up on the devices on the
mm,
internet. I've got filtering at home. The devices are parental controlled, and but
yeah,
I can't control what AI spurts out, and so it's really, really scary. And the thing is, there's no real authority to force people to police it.
no,
And even if they do, that can be, obviously, we see in America, plenty of other places. If it is an authority that's controlling it, then that leads to other dangers as well.
Well, doesn't mean look at it here in the UK, the age verification thing. What did they see?
Yeah,
They saw a huge rise in VPNs because people didn't want to do it, and it was
yeah.
more the younger people and students who were getting around it. And the exact same thing will happen if they try and not manage, but police, I suppose, AI.
But we're
People will
seeing it
just
in Australia at the moment, aren't we? In terms of the
they're,
ban,
they're banning social media or putting restrictions on there, aren't they?
yeah,
For
for
sure.
everybody under 16,
Yeah,
they're doing that, which it's interesting. I've been reading quite a lot about it, and the blocks that they're putting in are fairly rudimentary from a technical point of view. They're not banning the websites and such. What they're doing is trying to manage this signing up to the websites, which means that they've got age verification, much like they have now enforced for pornographic content in the UK. Thing is that it's not hard to get around the ID and age verification of it if you want to.
yeah,
And fair play in Australia, that saying, we know it's not the default answer, but I know Cora, which owns Smoothall in the UK, that they had one of their board members was on the panel that was consulting for it, and quit because it didn't think it did the job effectively, which I
mm,
think is really, really interesting. With the amount of risks that are out there, we really need people to come together and be able to mitigate these risks in an effective way.
yeah,
And a good place to look would be the education sector, where these things are done at scale while
yeah,
still supporting schools to be innovative. It's a very fine line in terms of the filtering and the monitoring and the firewall and the protection, and making sure that's all efficient, but then letting people go out and try different technology, isn't it? It's
yeah. I mean, I see filtering over the next few years, and I know this will probably be coming anyway. I think it will be changing very much so because it's going to turn more into monitoring. I think.
All right, okay.
So, I mean, filtering will be there to stop the nasties of the world and everything else, but I think it's going to shift more and more towards monitoring what's going on the device instead, especially for students. Because with AI, we obviously know now they've got the filtering AI categories and things like that to block it. But because the way that the filtering works, you can't necessarily see what's coming through on that chat once you're active on this. So the monitoring will take more of a play on that. And companies like Smoothwall, NetSweeper, etc., for their OnGuard product, they're probably going to have to expand the scope of those monitoring tools very quickly to try and cover some of these new elements which might come through.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not necessarily going to be bullying or those other key elements. It's going to be other things which will come through that AI, and they need to be able to pick that up quite quickly.
I think it's Tom Newton over at Smoothwall, who's a VP of product over there. He's got some really good content out there on the how to keep schools safe in the era of AI. And I mean, like you're saying, for TalkStraight, with the experience that they've got, I mean, Smoothwall in 1 in 3 schools in the UK, and obviously now part of a worldwide thing. And I was having a chat today at work about planning for things like Safer Internet Day, which I still think is really daft, because just having one day for it is nowhere near enough. It needs to be an everyday thing. But
Safer Internet Day, there's no question in it at all.
yeah, and seeing what we can do in terms of just trying to get some messages out there so people can understand. And hopefully, this chat, I think, has touched on some really important elements of the challenges out there that are doing that. What is next, though, in terms of connectivity? So you talked that we're seeing 5-10 gig connections in schools.
Yeah.
Is there any other innovations out there that, outside of the filtering and monitoring and that kind of thing, with the actual connections themselves?
Well, you've got low Earth orbit now, haven't you, with Starlink and everything? We do a lot of Starlink now. That's becoming more prevalent, especially as I think the DFE have put in there now low Earth orbit as a potential backup option, haven't they?
Yeah, I was actually doing some training on it the other week to our team, and it actually said about satellites explicitly in there. So
yeah.
What's the benefit for a school going for a satellite connection as a backup line?
Well, let's say, okay, you've got FTTP rolling out. We all know that's happening. Say you're in an area only with OpenReach. You'll put an FTTP connection in, and then you'll put, okay, what do I do for a backup now? I can't do copper anymore because that's gone. Can't do that. Oh, okay, I'll put another fibre in. Guess what? It's all coming in along the same fibre. There's no resilience there. You'll have carrier resilience at most. So what's the next option? Well, you've got 4G, 5G. Well, we all know in the UK that can be as patchy as possible, even in cities. So your next option is low Earth orbit satellites, because at least then you're going to get good enough speed and something which can keep you going whilst your fibre gets fixed. If it goes down, I mean, fibre's a lot more reliable. We all know that, who's using it anyway. But we've all seen it in schools. Someone's come along, dug up the car park for something, and there goes the fibre. At least with the Starlink or whatever alternative, you can still maintain it.
They can't dig that up.
They can't dig that up. No.
No.
I mean, admittedly, we've had some schools who've said, we don't really want to put a satellite dish on the roof because the students might rip it down. Okay, that's another problem to deal with.
Yeah.
But, it's an alternative option at the end of the day, which is a viable one to go for.
As much as I hate supporting anything that that gentleman who owns it does, I'm not a particular fan of his. That's a personal opinion. But I think it is a very interesting one, and it's good to see it being put onto it, and in terms of recognition of, it's not just good enough to have 2 lines exactly the same. That's not a backup line. It's not resilience at all, because it all goes through the same place and the same systems. And so it's good to see that they're putting that out there, and the speeds are reasonable, aren't they? Even for the costs these days, you're talking a couple of 100 meg.
Oh yeah, we use we carry, I think, 4 or 5 spare Starlinks in stock now. So if we've got a lease line which, I don't know, Virgin or whoever's not been able to deliver quick enough, or maybe there's something going on, you know what it's like, blockages and all these other bits, we will put a Starlink in there as contingency. And that is a real viable solution, which we can have up and live next day.
Yeah.
We've had secondary schools running on it without a problem.
It's interesting you said that we've all been in a place where people have cut through fibres. I just want to point out to you, you've probably been in that situation more than a normal person. Because that is or was a large part of your job. And
I don't think I told you the worst one we had.
Go on then.
So it was at my Co-Connect tenure. We had there's a school which was taking absolutely ages to deploy the fibre, and it was in Winchester, which is fairly built up anyway. And BT or Openreach had to put a new pole up. So they did that, came back, residents had ripped the pole down in protest.
Really?
Yeah, ripped it down in protest. So that delayed things. We had a car which was over a manhole cover. That delayed an install by 3 months because they couldn't find the owner of this car. Literally, the Openreach engineers were going down this road, knocking the doors, trying to find out who owned this car. It was hilarious. Well, not hilarious. It was actually quite irritating.
Well, I was going to say, because I remember being the person who used to have to deal with you giving me this news and these excuses, and you know, I remember some of our conversations and getting it done, and it's really frustrating, isn't it? Because I mean, Concero now sell lines and such like there, so the tables have turned on me somewhat, in knowing that you are at the.
Shayne wasn't lying all those times.
Yeah. Well, no, I still think you were, but yeah, the way that BT Openreach run it, which is obviously different to BT, is still crazy, and how it's allowed to happen, who knows. But I will say one thing, Shayne. Look, one of the reasons why, I don't know if you remember this, that you know, I've worked with you for so long is we were setting up a school, and for whatever reason, I think it was a delivery delay, you put the piece of kit that I needed in the back of your Mini, and you drove from Portsmouth to Redditch that day. And
I think it was hard drives for a server that had gone pop or something.
Yeah, or an actual SAN or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember which school it was, and I won't say the name of it, but I remember you getting there, you dropping it off, you're saying, "Where's the toilet? Because I need a wee." Having a wee, getting in the car and driving back. And that's, I always say, it's the people that you work with that are willing to do that are important. And so it's no surprise to see you riding high, you know, in your role at Talkstraight, and obviously when you was working at Co-Connect and leading that and pushing that forward. And it's great to see that going forward, although sometimes I do wish I had a supplier who'd still put the stuff in their Mini and drive to me when I needed it at no cost. At no cost to me as well. That was impressive.
I mean, one thing I do say, and the customer must come first. There are times when the customer's wrong. We all know this, and you face it. Network managers face it because the staff and the teachers, the staff and the students are the customers at the end of the day. We all know some of the time they're wrong, but you just have to suck it up sometimes. Just deal with it.
Are you saying that I was wrong?
Oh, I'm not saying you were wrong. You were wrong when that. 100% exception to the rule. Although I do remember coming off a call with you, and one of my keyboards literally was in pieces on the floor.
Oh dear. I always remember that as when you came to sell a solution, your technical colleague used the term magic to describe it to me. As another technical person. I remember saying to you afterwards and saying, "Don't ever bring anybody to demo to me that calls it magic. I literally want to know the technical stuff. That's my job." But I remember having a bit of a laugh over that. So it's been.
I think the colour drained from my face when he said it's magic. I was like,
I've seen the colour drain from your face so many times, Shayne. And by the sound of it, into your keyboard pieces that have been on the floor. the questions, there's two questions that I always ask at the end of a podcast, and one is what piece of equipment or technology or experience would you never want to see in a school again? What even just the mention of it makes you shudder?
Oh my God. Wow. Makes me shudder. I'm trying to think. There's so many, but I don't know if it's right to say some of them.
You can. It's a free world. I have this. Everybody comes in and says, "Oh, I can't say it." I don't know who everybody thinks listens to this podcast because.
Windows 8 tablet. There you go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Windows 8.1 tablets, when they tried to come in, oh my God.
Do you know what's ironic is that you didn't even sell us our 600 or 700 that we had. I don't think we had it from somebody else. But I agree. Yeah, I agree because they were a nightmare. So the second question is a bit easier to answer, I think, in terms of that you're not going to upset anybody. But what are you most excited about seeing next in the education sphere? So, you know, what's next? What you're excited about seeing or maturing or happening?
Oh God, that's a difficult one because I'm very focused on my specific area now. So to think of other things is quite challenging. In my area, in regards to broadband, I was at a tender bidders day the other week, and one of many. And the guy said, broadband's not sexy. And he's true. Broadband is not sexy. I think what I'm most excited about is coming there. I suppose one thing that excites me, but it also makes me very nervous, is that next step that the current generation of students will be able to take using AI and other tools which are out there now. I'm quite excited by what that can bring. I mean, I use AI on a day-to-day basis. I use it for data analysis now. I use it to help me with other aspects of my job. And it is amazing in what I can produce within minutes that I take me hours or days to do. Literally, like when I'm looking at spreadsheets and things like that, the joys of my life. And I can just throw it at Copilot, because that's what we use, and just say, give me the trends, give me the analysis from this, instead of me having to sit there. What students will be able to do moving forward with that, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, look at the advancements they're making in medical science and things now using it. Just think what these students will be able to do. As long as they use it right and the right tools, it's just going to be amazing.
I couldn't agree with you more. And actually, yeah, as you know, saying the possibility. So it's not just what's theirs now, what's there now, which is exciting. Actually, what can these young people and people generally do with it is really quite exciting, isn't it? So yeah, definitely. Well, that's been a really interesting chat with you, Shayne. And I know we've been saying this probably for the last 3 years that I've been doing these.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I've run out of guests, so I've had to come. Yeah, I'll have to ask Shayne now. We'll have him on. But no, it was really interesting to talk with you and to catch up and share some of that. And I think it'll be a really useful resource, hopefully, for people. Just a reminder, if you are listening, you can ask any questions that you want about today's episode, and Shayne and I can see them and we can comment back. You can do that through your Spotify app. You can watch us on YouTube, you can watch us on Spotify, you can listen on Spotify and Apple and Amazon and basically anywhere that you can get your podcasts. So do subscribe, as we've got some really good guests that we've done previously. We've got some really good guests to come in the future as well. And so yeah, definitely, as all our sponsors have just signed up for another year, there will definitely be some more episodes coming in the near future. And despite what Shayne's saying, we haven't run out of good guests. And I think actually you'll agree how enjoyable this one's been, that maybe we're saving the best to the last on there. So Shayne, thank you for getting through a podcast without talking about your Lego collection behind you, which I know that you're particularly proud of and want to show off. But it's been really great to chat with you, so thank you for coming on.
Yeah, good to talk with you as well, Matt.